Hey guys, this is your week 5 video. Before you get started on the work for week 5, just make sure that you have looked at my comments first on your rhetorical analysis proposal, but also if you weren't understanding either the paraphrasing discussion board or the rhetorical analysis practice discussion board, then I left a comment on there for you. So please make sure that you look at those comments so that you have some feedback on your understanding of what rhetorical analysis is so that you can complete your RA worksheet. Okay, so your worksheet is due on Monday, and I'm just going to briefly go through this. I have put in purple font the things that students often forget to do, so make sure you do that. Points will be deducted for an incomplete worksheet, and points will be deducted if it seems like you didn't try very hard in this worksheet or if you didn't follow the instructions in this worksheet. So make sure you read everything thoroughly and do what it says. Moving down a bit, the blue background marks a new rhetorical appeal section. In each rhetorical appeal section, you have to do at the very least 2 things. First one is tell me a writing convention. Second one is give me an example. I may ask for additional things in other rhetorical appeal sections. Here for pathos, it says, what is one writing convention that your discipline values that aligns with the pathos appeal? So I explained that in the writing conventions and rhetorical appeals video. That is an extremely important video for this assignment. If you don't watch that video, you're not going to understand the assignment fully. So please make sure you watch that. So here you're going to put the writing convention. Then you're going to put the URL for that source where you found that information. And then you're going to choose an example of pathos from your primary article as a direct quote here. Tell me the emotion that creates in the audience. And remember that example of pathos has to also be an example of the writing convention. And that is true for logos as well. So you're going to tell me what type of evidence your discipline values, and that'll be the writing convention. Include the URL for that. And then you're going to give me 2 examples of that type of evidence in your article. And then you're going to tell me if there are any claims that the author made that are lacking evidence. And so you can put those in here as direct quotes as well. Then for ethos, remember that I'm not requiring a secondary source for intrinsic ethos, but I am requiring that you look up the author's credentials if they are not already stated on your primary article. So that will be the URL that you provide here. And as far as extrinsic ethos, that's all you have to do. Tell me the author's credentials and put the URL. But for intrinsic ethos, even if you decide not to put this in your paper, I am requiring that it goes on this worksheet. So you don't have to have a secondary source here, but I do want you to provide an example of intrinsic ethos. So look for areas in the article where the author uses academic vocabulary, really proves that through wording, just general knowledge, academic tone, formality, that he or she knows what they're talking about. Whatever in the writing makes them trustworthy. You can also discuss where the author got their secondary sources, what types of sources those are, and what makes them credible. Remember that you cannot discuss the content of those sources because the content of them is likely logos, evidence, right? But the credibility of the secondary sources that your primary article uses is ethos. Okay, and then is there anything that could make the audience distrust the information? Think about, are there areas in the writing where the author contradicts herself, or there are areas where there's a grammatical error or something like that? Okay, so now that you've done all that work, you should be able to write a working thesis statement. So let me show you an example of that, and you guys already read this, but this is an example rhetorical analysis. Example 2. Johansson et al. Use ethos and logos through mostly credible evidence and statistic-based data, while avoiding pathos in order to write in an unbiased and objective manner, which effectively persuades other healthcare professionals that birth interventions are overused. So here we have all of her main points. It looks like, first of all, that this writer will discuss Johansson's ethos first, and You can see that here. That's what she does. And then she'll discuss logos, and then she'll discuss pathos. So make sure the main points in your thesis statement will be the order that they appear in the body of your paper. Instead of just saying Johansson et al. Use ethos and logos and avoid pathos, she includes how they do that. That's not a requirement for your working thesis statement, but just know that for your finalized thesis statement in your paper, you should have how they're using each of those appeals in there. She also has both the overall argument in the primary article and her own overall argument in this paper. So the primary article's overall argument is that birth interventions are overused. Her argument in this rhetorical analysis is that Johansson et al. Effectively persuade other health care professionals to believe that overall argument. Okay, so make sure that you are including in your working thesis statement your overall argument, whether or not the author of the primary article is persuasive or successful at persuading or effective at persuading, and then also your main points. How does that author use ethos, logos, and pathos? And that's it for your rhetorical analysis worksheet. You're also going to do 2 readings. First one is responding to student writing. This is going to help you tremendously with understanding how to do the peer review, which will be next week. And then you also need to watch the Writer Center video. This explains the different types of sessions the Writer Center offers, and it just kind of gets you acquainted with the schedule and all that stuff. So make sure you watch that. Remember that a Writer Center appointment is a requirement for the rhetorical analysis assignment, and you can do that at any point before the final draft as long as you have at least an almost complete rough draft.